Evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Groveland Zoning Board of Appeals meeting on Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. Can I have a motion to open, please?
So motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are in business. All right, first on the agenda, public hearing, application 2023-6, 912 Salem Street, applicant Mark A. Abari. I apologize if I mispronounced that. A public hearing in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, as amended, for application 2023-6, made by Mark A. Abar, for the premises located at 912 Salem Street, map 4, is that 41 or 4I?
That is,
41.
41?
yeah, 40, yeah, map 41, lot 095.
Thank you, just to be clear. Map 41, lot 095, in the industrial 1, residential 1, R1, and residential 2, R2 zoning districts owned by William T. Bryan III for a special permit in accordance with section 50.4.5 table of uses of the Groveland zoning bylaw for a contractor's yard. All right, do we have the applicant here? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much.
Rush through it.
For the record, Steve Glowacki with R.J. O'Connell Associates. We are the civil engineers on the project. We're here on behalf of Mark A. Bear to present this project tonight. Joining us, as you can see, is Mark A. Bear, and also with us tonight are the landowners, Frank and William Bryan. Should any questions arise. The reason we're here today, as you mentioned, was for a special permit for use as required by Chapter 50, Article 4, use regulations. We had the benefit of coordinating with the town ahead of time before we came into this hearing. So for perhaps just about a year, we met with the town staff, had the benefit of technical reviews back in May, August as well, and then finally a meeting in November, late November of last year, to discuss the project and discuss the potential options. We also, in the course of this, coordinated with Natural Heritage for Blanding's habitat, Blanding's turtle habitat in the area of the site. In the case of the coordination with Natural Heritage, they noted that where we desire to put this development is outside that scope of that Blanding's turtle. And I'll get into that a little bit later as we expand onto the project a little bit. In addition to coming before you tonight, we will be required to go for site plan approval and also a land disturbance and stormwater permit from the planning board. And finally, the project will require conservation filing as there's some wetlands on site and resource areas and the like. As noted, the project is located at 912 Salem Street. The lot itself is rather large, over 22 acres, and is currently occupied by a single-family house, a garage, and several other structures. And there's, in addition, there's a small paved driveway and some gravel driveways as well. The site itself is bounded by Salem Street to the west, conservation land to the south and southeast, and residential and commercial land to the north and northwest, and finally a former railroad along the east edge. Access to the site is currently provided by a single driveway off of Salem Street into the residential and garage. The project, as you note, is located in three different zoning districts. Residence districts R1 and R2, and then also the industrial district. However, the entirety of this project is located up by the street, which lies entirely in the industrial district. Can we switch images, please?
Which one do you want to go to?
We can go to that one. That'll be fine.
This one?
That'd be great, thank you. So the plan that you see up on the screen and over here on the board shows the proposal, what we're proposing. And that would be a construction of a 22,000 square foot commercial building. It will include paved parking areas, providing a total of 40 parking spaces. In addition, there'll be a paved areas on both sides for drive-up doors to the north and south sides of the building, some concrete walks, and then plenty of landscaping around the site as well. Vehicular access will essentially be maintained in the same relative location with the driveway off of the west side from Salem Street feeding the lot. as shown on the plans. Though the site, as I mentioned, is over 22 acres, the development area itself is only 2.5 acres at the west corner of the site. The site has been designed to comply with all the zoning regulations, and we have a zoning table illustrating that. One of the other items I'll discuss with you this evening is parking. So, because this doesn't neatly fall in a category for Groveland's bylaw, and because this is a contractor's building, it has specific uses essentially, although at this time we don't have any specific tenants. But to determine the parking, what we did was, we used the Institute of Transportation Engineers, otherwise known as the ITE manual, for parking generation, and that would be the 5th edition that was published in January 2019. And what we did was, we determined the number of parking spaces that were required per 1,000 square feet of ground floor area during peak parking demands for a contractor yard or a specialty trade or contractor use. And we thought that was important because in some of our initial discussions with the town, we wanted to understand, we had a smaller amount of parking initially shown, which we think is appropriate for this, but in our discussions with staff, it seemed to make sense to bump this up. So we looked, again, in support of that, we looked at the ITE for information. One of the things about the ITE study is when they categorize uses, they contemplate the entirety of the building. So for instance, if this is meant to be a contractor's building, which we are saying we'd like to do, the ITE considers that there'll be offices, storage areas, and the like as part of that mix. So that's why we think that it's appropriate for parking in terms of that use. We also have some materials, but I don't know that we have them on the screen relative to the building, but I can show something here, and I have handouts if the board so desires, but.
I think we have.
They're in their
it,
meeting
yeah.
packets.
Excellent, great, thank you. So for the building, Mark's done some research, and he's been working with a fabricator to show what we sort of are looking at for this building, and essentially it's a framing plan, but more importantly, we have some live photos, real photos, rather than renderings of a building that Mark saw, and this sort of captures what he's hoping to do. You know, with the bays on either side, obviously sized for the lot that we are discussing. We think it has a good look, and it's a commercial building, of course, so you know it doesn't have a rural look, if you will, but we think it's appropriate for this type of use. We think it's a really good project. We think it fits in with the neighborhood. We think it fits in for the lot. And again, we're outside of the area that's been sort of determined to be the Blandings turtle habitat. But again, a lot of that will be vetted through when we go to conservation and also planning board for the stormwater and the like. So I look forward to entertaining any questions anyone may have.
So,
Thank you. Questions for the board?
you have any questions?
I don't know other than that, but.
So these, do you have a contractor storage anywhere else? Was this the first? So these things are gonna have a bathroom, I would take it,
Oh, yeah, bathroom, heat,
office.
office, small office.
Further development behind the building, what's the intent for behind and the access?
There's currently a pathway that runs down behind the property through the wetland. Currently, there are no plans to develop anything. We did initially have discussions about potential residential and different uses down there, but it didn't seem to be panning out currently the way we're looking at the site. So we opted to go a commercial route in here, but maybe someday there'll be some opportunities for other properties around it that we can sort of come in the back door, if you will, but that's something that we are currently not exploring.
How many different units are you looking to entertain within the overall structure?
11, as Mark pointed out, there's 11, the current building that is being designed has 11 roll-up doors, so potentially 11 spaces.
Morton building?
Something like that. I mean, we haven't Exactly.
Mark Abear. We haven't exactly, I mean, it could be a Morton or it could be, you know, one of the other manufacturers, but this is just to see how close we can, see if we can get approval.
Aye. So, John, you have anything to add?
Gonna be 11
Yeah.
proposed?
11 doors, so max 11 units, I'd say. And will every door have an office that goes with it, you think? Yeah.
It would have a door, a man door and a garage door.
Jason, John, any questions?
Nope. Do you have any anticipated traffic in and out? Any idea of what that's going to look like?
It's gonna be in the planning, I think.
Exactly right. The intent is to have a traffic engineer look at the potential trips. It's obviously contracted out, it's not a ton of users, but we do realize that traffic in the area is being addressed with, I guess, some signalization of that intersection, so a traffic report will be done to make sure we fully vet what the impacts may be from this.
You're gonna have the Ashton Green Book and,
I'm sorry?
Ashton Green Book in play for that?
Yes.
So that's a planning board thing.
Sorry, you need a microphone, please.
Yes, I'm William Bryan. I'm the owner of the property. From what I understand, at the intersection now of Salem Street and School Street, they're going to be installing a stoplight there. Long overdue, to be very frank with you, because coming Salem and the school, over the years, there's been an awful lot of accidents, but that's what I'm understanding now, that there is a stoplight coming in to play.
Correct.
So we're talking about 3.5 cars roughly per unit parking.
Yeah, so,
11 and 40 is
Mhm.
John, your microphone's off. Sorry, thank you.
So there'll be 3.5, less than 4 parking spaces per unit if they fill it.
so the impact to the wetlands, moving forward, typically, we see this after planning board, site plan.
I'm sorry?
So typically, we would see this after you've come to the planning board?
Oh, I was under the impression we should come see you folks first, just to get a sense of the use and, you know, to see if that was if you were,
Usually goes to planning, then zoning, correct?
Yeah, we used to be last.
Generally, yeah.
ZBA was always last.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not against the idea of it, but it gives all the other boards a shot to get squared away first.
Understood.
And we normally facilitate at the end.
understood.
I think this would be triggered, this is the aquifer protection area as well, so it would trigger a special permit under the
Yeah.
planning board as well.
It does.
In conservation, I don't know if Mike's had a chance to look at this.
Yes,
You'll see, I added, Mike got back to me Monday after I had sent out, or Mike Dempsey, the conservation, the chairperson of the Conservation Commission, he got back to me Monday with his comments. So that is the last page of your department comment package that you have there. It came through after I had sent out your meeting packet. So if you want me to read that into the record, I
That was
can.
actually gonna be my next thing, is that I saw we have some department comments, so if we
Yep.
could read them into record.
Yep. I
mean,
can do that if you want me to.
I think from a zoning perspective, the use is appropriate. Obviously, they're building within the industrial area of the property, and they're
I
coming
agree.
before us for zoning, not for parking or conservation or anything else.
I don't disagree. Annie, do you want to read the department comments? If you could, please.
Butters.
Okay, I'm just gonna start at the top. This is from our health agent, Rosemary Dice. It does not appear that the proposed area for the septic system is viable and is is a viable area. There is an existing building on the area which would create a disturbed area which may contain fill. The area proposed appears to be under pavement and would have large trucks traveling over it. It does not state how many contractors will be using the facility and whether there will be an office area. Since I have not been to the property or completed a site inspection, any further comments will have to wait until that time. Chief Valentine with the fire department. After unanimity per our earlier conversation, I see no issue with the use occupancy of this building. Moving forward, the proposed size of the building does indicate the need for sprinklers and a hydrant on site / within 100 feet of the fire department connection, a fire alarm system, all in accordance with Mass General Law 527 and all applicable NFPA standards. Thank you, Chief Valentine. Don't want to miss anyone. Groveland Municipal Light Department. Groveland Municipal Light Department's comments are as follows. 1, we would need a proposed electrical drawing and loading for the facility. Will this be a single or 3-phase internal electrical layout? Groveland Municipal Light does not stock transformers of this type for this type of project. Current lead times are around 2 years. Groveland Municipal Light will require a 1/3 deposit for any materials we need to order before we order them. Developer is responsible for the installation of conduit for underground systems which must meet the Groveland Municipal Light URD specs available at grovelandlight.com. Riser poles will not be allowed on the pole line on Salem Street, so an accessory pole will be installed for the URD gateway. Groveland Municipal Light will install all conductors and associated hardware. Developer is responsible to pay the installation invoice to Groveland Municipal Light Department. Groveland Municipal Light Department will have the electrical utility layout designed by one of our contracted engineering firms. Developer is responsible for this cost. An estimate for the Groveland Municipal Light portion of the build can be obtained once a rough plan for the utilities is laid out. That was from Kevin Snow, the general manager. This is from Chief Gillen, the police department chief. The only concern I have on your list is consideration number 2, which, as a side note, I had sent to all the departments the 7 the 7 criteria we use to determine a permit for special permit. You get what I'm saying. And number 2 is traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading. So he continues with, I think the plan for the traffic lights and marked lanes at the intersection of Salem Street and School Street should address the traffic flow entering and exiting through 912 Salem Street. Sam Joslin, building inspector, commissioner, need clarification if it is intended to be storage of vehicles / materials only, or if there will be offices on site, and is the intent to have work done within the building. Sprinkler system will be required. Contractors should be aware new energy code will be in place for commercial structures starting July 1st, 2023, and that this is in the Wellhead 2 area. And then last, but certainly not least, the Conservation Commission chairperson. As you noted, the developer will need to file for a permit with the commission due to work proposed in the jurisdictional buffer zone. It appears that the project has been placed in the best location on the property for minimal impact to the buffer and wetlands. Potential changes could be a smaller parking lot or smaller building if the commissioners do not approve of the current plan. This will be taken up when the developer files with the commission under the bylaw and Mass DEP Wetlands Act. The project also abuts turtle habitat as controlled primarily by the state's Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program. Once again, the project seems to have been placed to provide minimal impact to the overall habitat. NHESP looks carefully at projects such as this to give guidance to the developer. The commission is notified of any decisions by NHESP. From a use point of view, the commission might feel that a single commercial building in this location has less impact to the environment than 7 to 10 single-family homes. It involves less wetland disturbance, It involves less wetland disturbance, less habitat taking, and less septic systems. Regards, Mike Dempsey, Chair of the Conservation Commission.
Thanks, Amy. Appreciate that.
Good job, Andy. I'll remember to have you read my stuff.
Right?
What was it?
I'll remember to have you read my stuff next.
Fair enough.
So, I would, because this is in the, was it Aquifer Protection too? I would probably suggest that anybody coming in, anybody that you, it's gonna be rentals or is it gonna be condos? So any renter coming in, they would have to come to get a permit from the zoning board. Only because it's, there's a lot of conservation and it's our aquifer protection. It's prohibited use for somebody with fertilizers, hazmat would be a prohibited use unless you built unless you built it with containment. Probably don't want to do that, it's probably not worth it. So that would be my suggestion.
I do want to open it up for public comment as well.
Hi. Do I need to say my name?
Name and address, please.
Address is 278 School Street,
Your name?
John Pardo. I had a couple questions. I don't know if this is the right group.
No, please.
First was on traffic and, the light going in there and a lot of traffic now. It looked like there was going to be more traffic challenges with a contractor's site there. So I was wondering, and I've heard it here, you're looking into the traffic.
Yeah, I think as part of the planning board process, they'd be required to do a traffic study. more
Okay.
than one light.
The
Or
other
those
question,
questions.
and I don't know what type of businesses are going in there, but noise in terms of hours of operation, that type of stuff. Is there town ordinances on,
That would be on us.
Would
There
be
is-
on us to,
That's on
Yeah,
us. or
okay,
outside.
yeah, that would be on us.
because it's a residential district with a lot of kids, and you
Right.
want to make sure you have reasonable hours of operation.
Yeah, and that's something that we would take into account for sure.
And
We
this is,
understand that, but it's also, probably you haven't seen it, but the map, they are in the industrial zone.
I know, I saw the map. I know they're in the industrial zone.
And they do border to the residential and residential to the,
I get that.
so don't we,
I can still voice my concern.
oh,
though.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you.
agree.
I did see they're in the industrial zone, I'm just trying, that's a concern I would have. And the third question I had was, this hearing or this project is limited to this area, it's not the rest of the area, and approving this or whatever you're going to do doesn't open it up to just
Correct,
start of doing anything they want back there.
correct.
Correct, yeah, right, it'd be for the single project only.
But the question does arise, what would be the further development? And where's the access point? I see there's a proposed detention pond to the left, proposed stormwater management behind the building. I don't know what that leaves you for access to get to the rest of it. And I know there's going to be some wetland crossing stuff that has to be done, and that's going to be very expensive.
That's exactly the considerations that we were working out with Mark and his team as well. And again, with the benefit of meeting with the town and getting input on that. And also, as I mentioned, the natural heritage folks. So there's a number of considerations that sort of had us back out of any of those considerations. So currently, there's nothing planned back there. There isn't a phase 2 or, it's not happening right now. Again, just because access is limited. We'd have to have, as you mentioned, a wetland crossing. First of all, construction's costly, but also the ability to cross that, and some lotting challenges back there as well. But currently, it's not on the docket, so to speak.
And we have, you have the okay in writing from National Heritage? Hard to believe, everything seems to be priority habitat in this town.
It really is. So a majority of the site, and I do have a report that when we went to Natural Heritage, they thought we should go ahead and commission a report and a study, and that was done by LEC. And that report showed that a majority of the property, again, from the wetland back, so in other words, to the east, if you will, looking at the overall site, that area was either what they call the mating habitat or the travel areas where they could roam about. So there was a pretty good portion of the site, which is why we elected to keep the facility up the front and well out of that area. When we discussed these options with the Natural Heritage folks, they thought that was the best approach, to put something up the front and not have those potential issues. We did have a pathway to potentially doing things back there with Natural Heritage, but again, as I mentioned earlier, it's not a consideration at this time to do that.
Because if it is priority habitat, and it is in there, you'd probably want to go there first, because 22-acre parcel, they're going to issue, I developed, so I know, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, they're going to probably go for a conservation permit on this and take some and give you some, and
Yeah.
it's not fun.
We did discuss that, sort of habitat areas that we would have to carve off and sort of hold, if you will, that would be undevelopable, essentially to ensure that the habitat can be maintained. Can I address a comment earlier about the conservation? You mentioned potentially applicants coming back before the board. If we have a order of conditions that limits us in the order of conditions to what we can do, if the uses fall within those boundaries, would they still have to come back to the zoning board?
Mr. Chair?
Just a question I have.
You mean each tenant?
Yeah, each tenant, I think it was suggested earlier they should come back. Oh, okay.
I believe so.
I believe they would, just because we wouldn't know at the time of approval
We need to know what's
what
in
we're
there.
actually approving, right? So,
Understood.
yeah, I mean, any restrictions that we put on this approval would be for the general operation of the site, notwithstanding any specific tenants. So. Just regarding the question of the septic with 11 units and 11 bathrooms in there, is there any plan to, thoughts about how you would handle septic?
On the plan shown on the south side, we had an area sort of carved out. The plan, again, is in the planning stages in terms of actual design, but a look at the plan, on the north side and the east side, we're showing potential stormwater collection systems. And then on the south side of the building, we're showing a potential septic area as well as a reserve field. That, of course, has to be designed, and it seems like there were some questions from Board of Health about the positioning of that. And we have some leeway to move it around, of course, but the intent would be to have that on that side of the building.
So is that, whose parcel is this to the right?
I believe it's a town.
That's right, it's a town conservation land. As a
Okay.
matter of fact, I think the history of that piece might have been carved off for the habitat. Because that area is also completely, essentially, Blanding's turtle habitat.
This is habitat, that isn't habitat?
No, so to be clear, the habitat portion is further to the,
I would think it's back here.
well, the habitat is beyond the wetland to the east side. So the areas you see on the screen here are not essentially any habitat. If you look at the larger site plan, if we could perhaps go to the existing map. That's perfect. You can do the overall site. That's fine. That's excellent. So the wetland, you can see the wetland that comes through the middle of the site. It's a rather large area of the site. Essentially, the habitat area is from there over to the north and east side. So the upland areas, and you can tell sort of from the contours over there that this site, this portion of the site sits rather high against the street, and as you drop down to the wetlands, it drops off considerably, and that's sort of a pretty solid demarcation. And we do have the habitat map that shows these areas, and again, it was mapped by LEC. So, in the Natural Heritage was on board with their determination of the mapping.
I have the mass mapper up. I just pulled it up if you want to see what it looks like. So this red is habitat. So this is Nicole's and Groveland Gas, and then this is
It's disturbed, that's why they carved it out.
yeah, exactly. So
You are a lucky man.
So like, this is Nicole's, like Groveland Gas,
Yeah.
right here, and then this is where they're not considering habitat. So you can see.
Yeah.
Stand in line.
All right. Were there any other public comments? All right. Any other board discussion?
I have a question. Since this is industrial, that same building could be used for light manufacturing. if that was light manufacturing, would it come before the board?
Yeah.
I would think so.
Every
No,
year.
Because that's by right.
no, it's by right. If this was light manufacturing, it would be by right.
Same with Millennium Plastics.
Exactly.
A lead smelting plant is by right.
I wouldn't consider that to be light manufacturing, though. Which I can.
So this would be considerably lower impact.
Light manufacturing, per our table of definitions, is the fabrication, processing, or assembly employing only electric or other substantially noiseless and inoffensive motive power, utilizing hand labor or quiet machinery and processes, and free from neighborhood disturbing agents such as odor, gas fumes, smoke, cinders, flashing or excessively bright lights, refuse matter, electromagnetic radiation, heat or vibration or hazardous materials and/or chemicals. So that's permitted as right in the industrial zone. That wouldn't mean that they wouldn't have to go to conservation or planning, they just wouldn't have to come to the zoning board for a special use permit.
My uncles did, and we had about 20 trucks picking up or delivering 18-wheelers daily.
That's not light manufacturing.
Yeah, the light manufacturing doesn't speak to the volume of the manufacturing, does it? It just
Nope.
speaks to the,
The quiet machinery and
I have no problem with carpenters, electricians, plumbers, carpenters.
yeah.
The problem with our bylaw would trigger like any hazardous material use, any fertilizers, pesticides, you know, it's spelled out in the bylaw. You know?
The way our bylaw, the table of uses is written for prohibited uses, it says manufacturing in parentheses other than light manufacturing, so basically anything that's not in that definition I just read would be considered manufacturing, which wouldn't be permitted.
Okay.
Rendering plants also, mining operations, junkyards, fertilizer plants, dumps, slaughterhouses. All
I don't think
prohibited.
this is gonna be the market for a turkey farm.
That's all we need is a slaughterhouse in town, that's all we need. Andy, refresh my memory, what's the hours of operation for an industrial zone?
The hours of operation, the normal operating hours in the industrial district are 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday to Saturday. For as of right uses. So if it was a light manufacturing, those could be its hours, but yeah. So that's just as of right. For as of right uses.
What do you think, guys?
I think we should make sure with our council that if we vote, I mean, I like this idea, but I don't want to vote right now and tie another committee's hands. And, because we're getting hung up with this stuff in another decision that was made. So I'd rather wait a bit and let some of the other boards work through there in case the building size has to change or things have to move. I don't want to tie anybody else's hands. Again, we used to be last. We were never first. We were always last. And then we would do our best to facilitate something to make it work. But everybody else had a crack at it to make sure it was the best they could do. And then when it came to us, that was it. That's kind of what I'd like to see.
I don't know if that makes sense to me, because like I said, I mean, if it was manufacturing, it wouldn't come here, light manufacturing.
That'd be bylaw by right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so, all we're doing here is just approving the use, right, Annie? Whether or not they can use it for that. Then the planning still has to take care of all
Yeah.
of that. Health department still has to take care of that, and conservation has to take care of anything else.
Yeah, so we, in determining a special
Seems like the
permit,
cat's
are
getting
looking at
full.
those 7 requirements.
Go to court,
So we have to look at,
upset,
1, social, economic, or community needs, which are served by the proposal.
saying no, but
2,
when
traffic
lawyers
flow
get
and
into it.
safety, including parking and loading. 3, adequacy of utilities and other public services. 4, neighborhood character and social structures. 5, impacts on the natural environment. 6,
Process
potential
to be
fiscal
there.
impacts, including impact on town services, tax base, and employment. And 7, consistency with the town of Groveland Community Development Plan or Town of Groveland Master Plan. So those are some of the determinations we obviously look at when we make our decision regarding a special permit. But like Chris said, we also look at, hours of operation, number of employees, things of that nature that regard use, if, like Brad mentioned earlier, if certain tenants come in, they might require a special permit as well for whoever's renting it. We have other properties in town that are in industrial use and have multiple units, and when that unit switches out, they do have to get a new special permit for whatever their new use might be. But as we are learning in another situation in town that we're dealing with, we do have to be careful about making a decision based on another board's jurisdiction. We did get in trouble for that recently, as most of you are aware. So if that is just, I guess, my caution, that we can't make a final decision based on something that we have no jurisdiction over,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
So having said that, I don't believe we have enough information about, for instance, number 2, traffic flow and safety.
John, I think that's going to come to planning.
I know, but
Okay.
it's part of our decision-making
Right.
process. So until you get that information
Right.
and it's shared with us, we would be making our decision tonight based upon, I would say, perhaps not enough information to address these 7 points, especially number 2. I think, and potentially number 5, because that has to go in front of conservation. I think we're agreed that out of all the possible uses for this land, the proposed use of it seems consistent with these other factors and would be the best possible use for this land in an industrial zone. But I also have some concerns about the traffic issue. I think the light certainly might help with the traffic flow at the intersection there, but turning right here, I often come across cars trying to get into Groveland Gas, and this is right next to Groveland Gas in terms of the entrance, and I just see that as a potential problem that should be addressed by the applicant at probably the planning board, but not here.
You have a site plan? Are you ready to come into the planning board at some point?
We haven't delved fully into all the design yet, specifically because, our understanding was to come here first and see if the project basically had legs, if you would, before we spent a lot of money on design. The site plan itself is stable in what it is, but, we're going to have to do our full stormwater design, our sanitary, as I mentioned, and then, of course, commission our traffic report. So we haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. We don't anticipate an uptick in traffic. Again, there's only 40
See,
spaces.
Going to see a line of site, how many parking spaces are here?
There's 40 shown, again, based on our
Already shown, and depending if trucks are going to be outside, you know what I mean? CDL trucks, that would be a trigger of concern. How you're on an outside corner coming in here, so we're going to
Line
have
of
to
sight.
see, when coming to planning, we're going to have to see site distances and,
Yes, and that would be part of the traffic report, definitely. But again, we haven't gone through all those steps again, in consideration for the feelings of the board.
So in past special use permits that have come before this board, at least for the short time that I've been here, we've actually had applicants address these 7 points. And we find that very helpful if you would do that. Because these are the 7 points that we're supposed to be making our determination upon.
Well, as you mentioned, Ms. Schindler read through the points, the 7 points of consideration, and the one that standing out to me is the traffic, but again, we haven't had the benefit of doing the traffic report yet. So, again, we don't anticipate an uptick, but a large uptick, but it's something that I would want to get a handle on if that is something that's holding the board up from making a decision, so.
So two of us here on the planning board, I happen to be chair, and we do see, out of Groveland Gas, there is always a line of traffic, because they have good prices, so. I mean, I think the use is, you're there with the use, but there's some hurdles to get over first, if I do say so.
No, I think I agree, and I agree with your comments too, John. I think, that this is probably the best use for the area. I think in concept, it very much works. But I would myself like to see some of these other boxes checked before we go through it. And it doesn't seem as brought quite along as far as I'd like to see it before it's put before the board.
Understood.
Hopefully you get the feedback that you need.
So just so I understand correctly, it's best for us to put our materials together for planning board and go to planning and conservation first and then come back to you folks?
Correct. Listen, I'm in favor for business. I've been saying that for years.
No,
know.
likewise.
It's just,
Just needs to be flushed out so that when you come here, it's a no-brainer.
Understood.
because we're gonna give you, the parking use, we're gonna give you the hours, we're gonna give you, we'll probably do some conditions of, I don't wanna speak out of turn,
Oh,
but
please.
if the board's amendable and the board all is, votes on it, we're probably gonna condition it so, because it's the Aquifer 2 protection, they'd have to come in for a special use permit for each bay, whatever the intent is, unless it's light manufacturing, as Jason said.
So if that's the case, for instance, if in the course of our permitting, we go through planning board, we go through conservation, and perhaps Mark engages a tenant that maybe is light manufacturing, I'm not sure, if there's anyone in discussions, but then we wouldn't necessarily come back to ZBA, but again, we'd have the benefit of going to planning.
I
and-
think, Annie, would I be right that Sam Joslin would take that, that light manufacturing, since he is the zoning?
What do you mean?
If they come in with like a use of light manufacturing, would Sam dictate whether they have to come to the board or not?
He wouldn't be, it's a permitted use. It wouldn't
Yeah,
have to
he-
come to the board at
You
all.
wouldn't have to, it's by right.
But the
As long-
definition is general and broad, and,
Right, but as long as it falls within the definition of light manufacturing, they wouldn't need to come before the board for
Okay.
anything.
Yeah.
so there's your answer there.
And I'm not suggesting that that's the direction, I just want to make sure I cover all bases as we move forward to understand, when we should be coming in or not, to make sure I have all our ducks in a row.
Yeah.
So like another example that's permitted in the industrial zone is medical equipment wholesale. That's permitted as of right. So if you were to have a tenant that does medical equipment wholesale, whatever that technical definition may be, they wouldn't have to come in front of the zoning board because that is
No, we're
permitted
fine with
as of
that.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
another example.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd recommend that if, going forward, if there was any question about a tenant, whether it would fall in the purview, since it is somewhat of a broad scope, that they, out of caution, come before the board to double check to make sure
Yeah.
before it goes in.
It would be up to the discretion of the zoning
Right.
enforcement officer first, and then if there was a disagreement with,
That's where I was
like,
going with
if
it.
Sam says no, he thinks that, I don't, I struggle
thinks
to
it would
find
trigger
if-
coming into the
yeah,
zoning
I
board.
struggle to find a good example, but like if he says,
Yeah, I
if
gotcha.
someone's saying, I'm going to be doing light manufacturing, Sam says, no, you're wrong, I don't think that this fits the definition of light manufacturing, the person coming in to rent the space could appeal Sam's decision, and that appeal would come to the board, and then the board would make a determination on that definition if whoever would want to rent that space disagrees with the zoning enforcement officer.
Right. Yeah, that, I think point being just, out of caution and, in respect for the community, that if there's any question whether or not it did fall within the scope, that they check it out before, going full in with the lease, right? So,
It seems pretty fair.
Yeah.
so.
so just a recommendation. All right, any other comments?
I think in terms of box number 5, the comments by our Conservation Commission, as long as they provide us with the report that you got, then I think that would check that box.
Understood. Yeah, we have that. I don't recall any, it was some time ago, I think it was last, perhaps even August, or maybe even as far back as May. Did I ever forward the report to you? I know we discussed it. I can certainly forward that as part of the packet. But again, I think, understanding the timeline, I don't know that it makes sense for us to pass a ton of information along before we head off to conservation first and planning.
Probably an FYI, I mean, you probably need to decide whether you're going to go three-phase stuff, three-phase and talk to Kevin, because when he says 2 years, he means 2 years
Yeah, that is,
for those transformers.
Yeah, there's stuff still waiting, so, yeah.
Yeah.
that's a disaster.
Yeah.
But understandable, I know those
Supply
lead
chain
times
is-
Yeah,
are-
supply chain problems have been.
Bad for
Yeah,
Yeah.
as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, every industry's taking a hit. I know we're juggling around a lot of development we have now for that reason.
All right, so does anyone want to fly a motion?
Can I offer a suggestion?
You can?
Would it make sense maybe for the board to continue to a later date so that the applicants have time to touch base with planning and conservation, at least preliminarily? I don't know how quickly you could turn around an official application or something, but you could maybe do an unofficial presentation in front of the Planning and Conservation Commission to at least keep the process moving.
You know how that goes.
It's just a suggestion for the
Kinda like a
applicant if they want.
preliminary plan.
Well, because, kind of, I caution the board in
Excuse me.
making
We got a timestamp for this?
we do. But again, I'd have to double check, I have planning and conservation in my head too, as far as the timelines that we go through. But I believe it's 90 days.
My suggestion would be a full site plan submitted to the planning board. I wouldn't waste your time coming in with a,
Partial, yeah. Yeah, I feel we'd probably be up against the same thing if we were to come in with partial information. It's going to open.
it's gonna be questions, and it's gonna be, well, you don't have an incomplete plan, we're just gonna deny it at that
Yeah.
time. I mean, that's,
Yeah, and again, that was certainly our intent to do that again. I think there was a misunderstanding about coming in and in which order, but, that said, that's the intent to do a full design plan. As a matter of fact, our intent is to do soils analysis, and test pits and everything sometime next week. So we're going to mark those out, dig safe and all that, so.
I see where you're coming from, and part of me says zoning, but the way the planning is written because of the special permit on this particular application, I think generally you have a consensus for the board that we all kind of like the idea.
Understood, yeah, understood.
So, do you want to fly a motion for continue this? And if we continue this and it doesn't, if you can't,
Well, if we continue it, we need to state a date, right?
If we continue it, we need to.
we need to know
If we-
exactly when it's up.
Correct. We need to continue it to a specific date and time. I mean, we've continued things 2 months out before if the applicant is willing to request an extension.
So if we request an extension, it moves that goalpost, that timeline, again, based on the fact that we would be doing our study, our full design plans, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
So if you're doing soil testing, how far back are you? You 3 months?
No, not 3 months. Probably 6 weeks for full design, or maybe a little less, but the other thing that we don't control, we don't have an in-house traffic, so we'd have to rely on the traffic engineer. Again, it's not a large report, I can assure you, so they could probably turn theirs around in 4 weeks.
HydroCAD
So,
in-house?
I'm sorry?
You have HydroCAD in-house?
Oh, yeah, we do full stormwater design, septic design, all our,
Save your time.
Yeah, our engineers would do that. So, we have time to do it. I just don't want to commit to a specific date. But I see the crunch here,
Right.
getting the materials done, submitted in the planning board. And by the way, after we submit, it's not that we don't go on a hearing in a week, right? There's a
Right.
time to.
Well, there's the
Time
mail
out.
that, you got to do your mailings and papers and
Exactly.
14
first meeting of
days.
the month of July would be there.
So I
we're
think
kinda
there's a,
looking
you know,
at
there's a
that
little
range.
bit of a gap there, between submitting,
That'd be 2
actually
months
going
out.
on the first hearing. And by the way, as you know, you're the chair, there's no guarantee we would close in the first hearing, but certainly we'd get input, I would assume,
Yeah, correct, because special permit
Yeah.
usually takes a couple meetings, but
If we know far enough in advance, we can get our peer review engineer on board and try to get some
Correct.
comments from them back before the first hearing as well.
And let me ask you too, would we, because we talked about the permitting timeline, Andy, as I recall, I think sometime in November or late November about the layout of this. Would, obviously, the stormwater permit and everything would be administered through the planning board, but would we go to conservation concurrently? Because I'd also have to have my wetland scientist prepare the notice of intent, as part of that, so there's a lot of moving parts, but trying to.
The other,
One of the other projects we had, we mutually agreed that we could, to extend the date to 90 days. We'd kick it back 30 days if we needed another, but upon both sides agreeing.
So when's the 90-day on this
If we
application?
get there.
well, he can always withdraw and then resubmit.
I was just going to say, Brad's correct, you can also withdraw and resubmit
You would
if,
have to do your mailings again and
Right, renotice the hearing.
that's
Mutually
expensive now.
agree, we don't have to do anything, it's just extended.
No,
no, they would have to formally reapply.
If he withdraws, he has to go through
If
the
they,
whole
if
thing,
they,
Right,
Yeah, extended and withdraws are two different, yeah.
so if he,
That's
if,
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
sorry, one
Probably-
second, I'm pulling up the,
if we can extend it for probably the maximum time to give him enough time, to feel comfortable doing the site plan.
So if we extend it, we don't have to necessarily set the hearing date now, and the reason I ask that is because if we're able to get our materials in
There
in
you
3
go.
weeks, 4 weeks,
Yes.
Right.
then we'd
no,
like,
we need to set a time and date
Right now.
Yeah,
right now
yeah, if-
to
if-
extend to continue the
Yeah,
hearing, or else we
exactly.
cannot
Right,
move
so what we need to
forward.
do, we need to say that we're going to continue this hearing until this meeting date.
That being said,
Then if
that
there's an
doesn't mean we have to,
extension-
we can just continue from that time.
I
So,
see.
so let's say we choose, but we need to pick a time, so we're gonna, theoretical, we continue it to, next Wednesday, the 10th. We're not doing that. I'm just throwing it out there. That just means that the board would have to meet next Wednesday on the 10th
Continue it
at
again.
7:30 PM. They don't have to hear anything new about it. They can just open the hearing and then choose to continue it further out again. It does,
So when's the 90-day?
I'm still working on pulling that up, sorry.
Be your best interest to continue. It'd be all your best interest to continue, I think.
And I think it would make sense to, perhaps we set it out 6 weeks, for instance, and then should we come back, whatever the hearing is that lines up.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that the 90 days probably somewhere beginning of, in the end of July, beginning of August timeframe, I'm guessing. So if we set, obviously July is a tricky month, so if we set a date somewhere in maybe second
Monday,
week-
July 3rd
Is 90
the
days?
90 days from the application timestamp, which was April 4th.
So.
That's considered a holiday in my
Right, so,
Be out of the
so
country,
realistically, we're looking end of June. In order to meet and continue, we need to
So-
continue to a date then.
Normally, the board meets the first Wednesday of the month,
And then the alternate date of,
and the alternate date would be the third Wednesday of the month.
which would be June 21st.
21st.
Is it possible to look, let's say, 60 days out, for instance? And this way here, it gives us the opportunity to present earlier, should we be able to, in this way here. At that point in time, if we're not shored up with planning and conservation, I can come back and simply ask for an extension again.
Either way, all you have to do is email Annie, say, we're going to continue.
Oh,
The
okay.
board will meet.
Right.
We'll just motion to continue.
Yeah,
Right.
and I mean,
Understood.
if
Right.
you want to, give me an update on how things are going, I can also present that to the board at the time, too.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's possible, if we select 90 days and I want to do it sooner, is the option available? That's why I'm suggesting we go, 6 weeks or whatever,
Well, right now, so from June 21st, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 7 weeks. But 6 weeks falls after our usual meeting in that month.
Yeah, we don't have
So-
to do it at our usual time, it's just the second Wednesday of the month, the Conservation Commission meets.
So I think that, the 21st, which is that second Wednesday of the month, lines up with that, basically the timeframe that you were just talking about.
Remember, you still have to do the site plan. You still have to do notices, right? About as notices in newspaper, advertisement. That's 2 weeks. And our board meets every first and third Tuesday.
yeah, so there's a time frame. Yeah. I just want to make sure we didn't hamstring us, and,
I don't think so.
yeah. Mark, does that work for you?
Seems to line up with everybody else, right?
Just want to make sure. Okay,
All right. Fly motion?
Go ahead.
I will make a motion to continue the hearings on application 2023-6 until Wednesday, June 21st at 7:30 PM.
I will second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, who seconded that motion? Jason?
Brad.
Brad? Okay, thank you.
You can say Jason.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, approval of minutes from February 15th, 2023 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review Annie's fine work?
Yes.
All right. All right, I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the CBA meeting, February 15th, 2023.
So motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain. I was absent.
Yes, so we have 4 ayes, 1 abstention.
Who abstained, I'm sorry?
Jason.
Okay.
I wasn't there.
Town planner update. Andy, what do you got?
Not a whole lot. The last special permit we issued for Your Place and Ours, the applicant reached out to me about a week ago, I want to say, and to let myself know, and then Rebecca, our town administrator, and Rosemary, our health agent, know that the purchase and sale fell through, so that they will not be,
They are shutting down. See, we heard that they were shutting
yeah,
down.
they would not be. The purchase and,
Didn't go
her
through.
email said that the purchase and sale fell
Peanuts fell
through.
through.
So, she thanked us, though, for helping her through the process and granting the special permit, but that, yes, this purchase and sale fell through.
Pub
But
97 should be coming in, right?
Yeah.
I believe Pub 97 sold, I think. in the-
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah.
Didn't that already come through? It was
No,
Haverhill Beef Bottom, and the guy came in and I asked him if he planned on making it into like, a place up in, New Hampshire. Takeaway Tavern. Since he has a beef, so yeah, didn't he already come in?
No?
I don't remember it.
I don't think either of you were here.
I don't remember that
I think we
either.
had Mark.
Was I here for that?
I know they went in
That
for
was
a
a Board of
liquor
Selectmen.
license change.
There you go.
Okay.
I think it's
We got
selling
one
in
too many
June.
boards.
They,
Are you on their payroll, Jason?
Apparently.
I mean, I did see something, they had a banner up at one point saying coming soon, Pub 97, but.
I'll double check
They
to
already called Pub
see
97.
what their original special permit says, because some of them say that you need a new one on when there's a new owner, and some of them don't say that. So if it's remaining as Pub 97, no hours are changing or anything like that, they wouldn't. I'll have to look to see what the original special permit says. But I can do that and reach
I
out,
think
but.
that's going to be a good change. I think that's going to be a good change.
They were good for what they did.
Yeah.
Change.
And then, other than that, nothing new on the horizons. The cell tower at Cedardale that we issued a special permit for, I've not seen any motion on that. Riverside Pizza, who got a special permit with us, that's getting to be a while ago now. They are up and running. The junk removal company, I've had no complaints from any of the neighbors about them. I know that was a concern.
Did they put in the fence yet?
I think they had to take it down.
They have not put in the fence yet because the sewer project only just finished up. So, and I think they're waiting to tie into it,
Real quick, too.
which will require some more excavation stuff. So I think they're holding off on that for a little bit, but,
Yeah, I give that a glance on my way by every day. So,
oh, yeah.
Can't even see it.
And then other than that, I think that about does it.
All right. Are there any other items not reasonably anticipated?
None.
All right. That being the case, I will make a motion to adjourn at 8:30 PM.
So motion.
All those in favor?
That's John.
Aye.
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 Thank you, Groveland.